Thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to go ahead and go over taking a payment from the Invoiced side. Do keep in mind that this is you taking payments in the Invoiced UI for the customer. There will be a separate video that covers the customer process for taking payments, either via the customer portal or via links that they receive through communications that you send them when an invoice is due. Now here we just have a standard invoice with a total and a custom tax on it. We're not going to get into anything too complicated here. We are really just looking at the mechanics of taking a payment and or recording a payment. So what you'll want to do is we'll go ahead and go over to the Action section and go to Receive Payment. This is the Receive Payment screen. So this is what you will see whenever you go to receive a payment, either from the invoice or from the payments page. Now by default, as you look up here, you can see there's two options and it defaults to cash receipt. Now cash receipt is for a payment recording. So if you are not really taking a payment right now, you're just putting into the system that a payment was taken so that it closes out an invoice. This is the section you're going to use. If you want to actually use a payment method to cover an invoice, you're going to click on Process Payment. Now, as you can see, both screens are mostly the same. Process Payments, the main difference with this screen is that instead of offering what kind of payment type it is, you are going to have the options for whatever payment methods the customer has on file. So as you can see here, this customer already has a Visa on file, so that is an option. If we click here though, we can select to either do an ACH, which will bring up the screen needed to put in bank account information, or we can select a credit card, and it will bring up the information we need in order to fill out a credit card. Now coming back over to this screen, as I mentioned, this instead of all of that has just a list of payment methods. Now again, when you're doing a cash receipt, you are just recording a payment. So none of these have any huge bearing aside from your own recording process. You might want to make sure that you know if payment was sent via cash or check or PayPal, or a lot of people also just use other to say it's in a different system. Now, to use either of these screens, we'll go ahead and go back to this one since we were on it before. There is kind of a balancing to it that needs to happen. So the initial number up here, the payment amount, this is going to be similar to the amount received. So it's the amount that is being supplied to the invoice. This number needs to always match this number at the bottom, the payment. Now, how it gets there can be through a couple different methods, but a lot of people, what they'll see is that, let's say, for example, you're just taking a payment for $50. They'll do that. They'll look down here. They'll see that that's not the total for the invoice, and then they'll see that there is an imbalance of some kind, and they're not 100% sure how to fix that. This number always needs to match whatever is at the top of the screen. So if we switch to 50, it's going to say remaining 0. Now, that in and of itself does confuse people. So we do want to make it very clear that what this down here is representing is not the invoice itself. This is not the total left on the invoice. This is just the balancing of this existing sheet. So there's 0 money unaccounted for. Everything is currently accounted for. So if we go ahead and process the payment, we are going to see this work, and it will just take the payment for what you have here, the $50. Let's go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so the payment was successful. So if we go down here on the invoice, we can see that there is now a payment for $50. This is just a regular payment. This is the same if a customer were to make a payment. The payments aren't different in between each other. The only real difference is where they came from and what kind of payment method they were. The next thing we are going to look at is a slight variant on our previous video, which is going to be taking a payment with a credit available. So let's go ahead and get right back into our receive payment section. So as you can see, there's now a new section here. So we now have a $5 credit. Now credits are always going to kind of appear in this little middle area. I still usually consider it the top of this area. This bottom area is always its kind of own separate thing. Now when you're going to apply credits, you do have to keep this balancing in mind. So for example, if we want to pay off the full $19, we are going to need to go ahead and pay $14 up front, and then we are going to be able to apply our $5 credit. So that'll cover the full $19. So with this, you can't really do like a custom partial amount unless you're going to adjust the amount at the bottom. So if you change this to 13, suddenly this is out of balance. You'd have to change down here to match 18, the amount plus the credit balance. So it's just one additional step to getting, your invoice paid. Not overly complicated, but it can cause some confusion, especially if you're used to seeing the screen without an existing credit. Now once you go ahead and make that payment, you see that goes ahead and pays off the invoice. Again, taking a look at this, the payment for the credit does appear as a separate line because it's not coming from any payment method, it's coming from the customer itself. So we see here this is considered a keyed payment, so it's just a recorded payment. But this is how you will see a credit come up on an account. And yeah, that is taking a payment from the invoice sent. If you have any additional questions, be sure to look for additional training videos. We do also have documentation. And you're also welcome to chat or email in or give us a call.